This is Rabbi Aaron Boxt from Temple Beth Shalom in Ocala, Florida. I really want my podcast to get or to apply to a wide audience. I don't want to have the same age people every week experiencing my podcast. I want people of all ages and all places in life and all cultures and religions and whatever to be able to in some way connect to this podcast. So I thought this week I would discuss something a little bit different than what I've discussed in previous weeks, and that is death. And what I mean is, I don't want to talk about heaven and hell and what happens after we die. That's a whole different podcast. That's a whole different topic. But what I want to talk about this morning is how we approach members of our family who are either dying or at the end of their life, who are sick, or people who, have a sudden heart attack and pass away quickly, in maybe we didn't even expect it. And I want to talk a little bit about what my role is in this situation. So as a rabbi, as you can imagine, I have officiated at a large number of funerals. And I have officiated at funerals for people that I knew extremely well, family members of close friends or congregants that I've known really, really well. And I've also officiated at funerals for people that I didn't know at all. Maybe I just met their family because they were connected to me for by an organization, and I really had no relationship with them whatsoever. I approach all of these funerals the same way. I'm not a renter rabbi. I don't like to be someone who, just comes in last minute and wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and walk out the door and never speak to that family again. I often joke with my congregants and with people that I've just met maybe recently to say that I'm like a bad fungus, that once I get in your life, I don't go away. And what I mean by that is, if I am a part of your life in a rabbinic sense, I don't want you or anyone to feel like they can't reach out to me or come back to me in the future with questions or comments. And this is for all life cycle events, baby namings, weddings, funerals, and so on and so forth. And I officiated at a funeral this past week of someone that I did not know. I had the honor and blessing to spend quite some time with the wife of the deceased over the last few weeks and really form a relationship with her, and really learned an awful lot about her beloved and the many sort of dynamics, the different dynamics in her family, and the layers of her husband and his life. And I felt like when I was at the funeral that I really did know this person, even though I'd never met him. Just listening to the words of the people that loved him and how they spoke about him really connected me not only to the family but also to him. And this is the kind of relationship that I like to build with families when I'm with them at their most vulnerable times, most vulnerable of periods in their life. When you're sitting with a family and their loved one is dying, whether I'm at the hospital or I'm at in their home, I'm doing my best to be present with them in that moment, and whatever that means, whether it's holding their hands, whether it's reaching out and holding the hand of the person who's dying while I pray with them, or just being there and, maybe telling a joke or trying to lighten the mood, or just be completely somber. It really depends on the family and what their needs of me are. And I find this to be one of the most sacred things I can do as a rabbi. To be in that moment with these families, it truly is a blessing. It's draining, for sure, but it's one of the reasons why I'm a rabbi, because I believe it connects me in a way that to this family in a way that I wouldn't have connected with them otherwise. And I really do feel blessed by this. Because, when people are in their most vulnerable of situations in life, that's when you get to really see who they truly are. Because they don't hold anything back. And of course, I get asked lots of questions about God and why would God allow this or why would God allow that? Where does God fit in the picture? And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's not a question that I try to answer with them. I'm happy to talk with them about God at a different time, but in those moments, my job, my essence of being at that point is really just to provide comfort for them, to provide someone or something that's not, as we say in the CPE world, this non-anxious presence, which allows me to sit back and breathe and think about things in a way that they're not able to in that moment or those moments. And that's a sacred responsibility. Now, this is not to say that every single family mourns the same way. Obviously, families mourn in different ways, and ultimately, sometimes we tell lots of jokes and we laugh a lot, and it isn't until that last moment of life in which we flip a switch, and we become extremely somber in that moment. On the other hand, I've been with families where the person that their beloved that died went out with a laugh because they were telling a joke, and we were all laughing, and the last breath was taken during that laugh. So every situation, every family, every person is different. And, it really does allow me to be, it allows me to bring out different aspects of my personality, of who I am, and what is needed in that moment. And again, I can't say this enough. That's a sacred responsibility, and one that it's one of those things that I don't want to be in that moment, because that means that I'm with someone or a family in their most difficult of times in life, and I don't wish that upon anybody. But on the other hand, if I don't have those moments with these families, there's something that's missing. I tell people when we say the Kaddish is not about death or mourning. The Kaddish is about recognizing how important these people were in our lives and thanking God for the opportunity to be with these people in our lives and to have the memories we have with them. And that if we didn't have these memories, if we didn't have these moments in our lives, we wouldn't be crying, we wouldn't be mourning. So mourning is sort of a blessing and a curse at the same time. We don't want to mourn, but on the other hand, if we don't mourn, then we don't get to appreciate all that caused us to be in that moment where we feel the need to mourn. And that's it for this week. I'm in a reflective thinking kind of mood, as you may have figured out in some of the things I've said. And I hope that each of you has a wonderful rest of your day and week. And we'll be back again next week, same time.